going DeFi, greatest in the world, and they finally about to see why. What you know about XRD? I'm smart money, I ain't never on a decline. What you know about NFTs? It's not just Ace, when you finally gonna realize you need scalability, need more utility, then you better call on these guys. I'm going radical, I'm going Radix, I'm going radical, I'm going Radix. Hyperspeed DeFi, never on a decline, building the future, I feel like a savage.
Hello and welcome. I am Piers Ridyard, CEO of RadixWorks, a core developer of the decentralized finance protocol Radix, a public ledger entirely focused on bringing DeFi into the mainstream. This is our podcast, the DeFi Download, a show about decentralized finance and all things crypto, where we dive into the details of the projects, assets, and services that are powering the DeFi revolution. Today, I'm joined by Florian and Lukas, co-founders of Ociswap. Ociswap is the first Radix native decentralized exchange going live with Babylon, with a focus on concentrated liquidity, capital efficiency, and protocol-owned liquidity. Welcome, guys.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
It's awesome to have you on the show.
Yeah,
obviously, not everyone knows the legend of Florian, but he has been in the Radix community for a very long time, been incredibly active. And then anyone who spent any time in the Radix community will know Ociswap. You guys are probably one of the most active projects within the community. I see you guys on Twitter all of the time. I see you in the channels all of the time. I know that your community, you're doing a great job of building the community. And I thought it'd be a great idea to get you guys on the show and sort of hear a little bit more about your story from your point of view. So let's just start with the basics and, talk a little bit about your journey into crypto and how you discovered Radix. Let's start with Lukas.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the introduction. And my name is Lukas. I'm into crypto since 2016. So just heard about Bitcoin, Ether at the time, and just was curious about all the new technology. And I was more into the maybe on this side to invest in it. So I'm not really focused on developing stuff at first. But yeah, I made some progress with the technology and got deeper into it. Made some online courses based on crypto stuff, so in German-based style. And later on, I had a huge opportunity to join Radix and of course Ociswap first with Christoph Heuermann. He's the founder of the blog called Staatenlos, and he asked the community if someone is interested in doing a Radix-based node. And so I come into place. I know him quite for some years now, and just said, yes, I can do it. I will run the server and grow the community from his blog. And so, this was quite a success at the start. And afterwards, Florian and Marco come to me and ask me if I'm interested in joining Ociswap. So they had all the ideas already set up with the logo design, with the name and all this stuff. And yes, I just needed some couple of hours to think about that. And yes, it was the best decision in my life. And I really enjoy being. I really enjoy to be in this great, amazing team, to work every day and to grow with also myself all the day to be better. And yes, that's my journey into crypto and Radix. Yeah.
Awesome, Florian.
Yeah, like I said, my name is Florian. I'm from Germany. I'm currently living in London, and I'm a drummer. And I study computer science, and also am a software engineer and working as a freelancer. And I started with crypto in 2017, like probably some of us. And I followed the whole pump since beginning of 2017, and then decided to jump on the train in late December. So it wasn't the best decision back then, but it got me into crypto, and I then kept my tokens over the years, and I rejoined in 2020 with the Corona crash. And when Bitcoin dropped to $4,000, I said, okay, now it's a good time to re-enter the space. And when I just started, like most of us probably, with Bitcoin and Ethereum, because I said, okay, now I want to play it on a safer level than before, because in 2017 I only had altcoins, no Ethereum, no Bitcoin. And when I just started to look around and look for good projects, and in August I saw the Radix website the first time, but back then you couldn't do anything because you couldn't buy a token and stuff, and so I kind of forgot about it again. And then I saw a Twitter tweet 2 days before the token launch, and then I decided to buy in and wait. And when I got my first Radix on the day of the token launch, and afterwards I just looked around and looked into Radix more over the time, and also started to compare other projects, and I didn't find something similar which I equally liked, and that's the reason I'm still here. And I'm really looking forward to Babylon and then Xian, because I really like what Scrypto is doing, and that's also the reason why we are building Ociswap in the first place, because we wouldn't have started a project on our chain because it wouldn't be possible to do in such a small team.
Right.
And
so let's dive into that.
Yeah.
So obviously you've been waiting for Radix to launch Babylon, which is when smart contracts go live. Obviously, Scrypto has already gone live. The ability to program in a sandbox environment went live in December, and you guys have started the process of building Ociswap. But also, you recently launched. You guys have launched 3 weeks ago. You launched Ociswap, which is already using Radix tokens, right? So even on Olympia, before the ability to launch smart contracts, let's talk a little bit about that before we dive into sort of like the what you guys are planning for Babylon. So talk a little bit about what's live already.
Currently, we have a centralized version of Ociswap live, which uses AMM pools, so automatic market maker pools. And the mechanism works pretty much like Uniswap version 2. Mm-hmm. So it's relatively straightforward, and we are using a trading engine that executes the trade. So people can send tokens to the bot and to the specific wallet where all the pools live in. And when they get the target token, I will return to them. And the interesting thing is that people in the community already built browser wallets, so we were able to really develop a web application which pretty much behaves identical to a real DEX experience for the users. So for the users, there isn't really much difference, and it's also not obvious that a centralized service is under the hood, because there's no registration or stuff like that. So it really behaves similar to Uniswap. So there's nothing different for the users. The only difference is that instead of calling a smart contract, the browser wallet sends the tokens to a specific wallet where the trading bot lives, basically.
Right.
And we also already launched liquidity pools 1 week ago, so people can now also provide and add liquidity to Ociswap, and they are getting liquidity tokens back which they then can return to get their original tokens back if they want. So they can add and remove liquidity, right? And they can also earn already the trading fees of the volume. Right. So that's already in place, and everything is working in that.
And so, can you also earn Aussie tokens as well?
It depends.
We have something like that in planning, but we didn't launch the details yet.
Okay. But,
cool. Yeah.
And so it is basically Uniswap v2. Uniswap v2 on top of Radix. I suppose this is a great opportunity for you to do some user testing as well and understand a bit more the kind of problems that come with building a front end against a DEX, and also what you expect, what kind of things people have problems with, the unexpected foibles that come when you actually have it in front of users. So Lukas, what have you discovered so far in the 2 or 3 weeks of running an exchange that you didn't know before this period?
So it's actually a great way how we achieved it first. So we started with Ociswap back in November last year, and our first goal was to grow the community. So as already said, there's no smart contracts. What you're actually doing at the moment. So that was quite a good way to start, because now we have a huge audience on Twitter, Telegram, Discord, and it's easy for us now to start with something and have a great feedback loop all the time with our community actually testing our stuff and providing all the feedback, and that's amazing. So we're just getting from all the way people testing it. Most of them are very, very amazed about the experience already before smart contracts. It's really fast, simple to set up, and with low costs. And that's really, when you're coming back from the Ether world, it's a whole another level already now with the Olympia network. And yes, that's just great every day that people are there testing it and giving out that feedback, and we are collecting all that stuff, and we really try to deploy all the updates as fast as possible to improve the experience even further. Yeah, so I think we are on a good track at the moment.
That's awesome. In building your community, Florian, you guys have done a really great job. To anyone who's thinking about starting their own project on top of Radix, what's the advice you would give to people when thinking about building a community?
I would say it's important to be active on Telegram, and also do events on Twitter to increase the reach. And what I really think is important, that people understand what you're going to achieve, so what your product is about. For a DEX, it was very easy for us because people know how a DEX works and what the benefits of it are. And also, what I would recommend is to have a token directly in the beginning, because it's much easier for your users to identify with a project if they own already some tokens. So it's much, much harder to build a community without having a token and launching the token, for example, only at Babylon, because you want to have some special features of future Scrypto. But if you want to use some of the features later, I would say it's even worth of thinking about a token swap if you really need that features later, instead of just launching no token at all. So I think that's really important. And yeah, so it's basically having a token and making it crystal clear for people what your project is about and why is it needed. Right. And then just classic marketing, do your best and try to reach as much people as possible.
And I really think airdrops are actually a really fun tool. So to engage with the community, to have create new ideas all the time. So it was our approach from the beginning to do different types of community airdrops every time. So we don't want to be predictable with what we are doing. So it's not so easy to cheat or to weird stuff. So that's also one very fun part of it. So to be creative and together with the community to grow, even especially for a small team at the beginning without any funding or something like that. It's a great way for Kickstart here.
I really enjoyed a couple of things you did. You did some partnerships with node runners, right? Yeah. And when you stake to that node, you also got like Aussie tokens, and I thought there were some really clever things you guys have done. But also, I've seen, whenever there's a relevant post on Twitter, you'll be replying to it. It will be something that's not just relevant but funny. Like the engagement that you're doing is coming from a place of thinking about things from a strategic point of view. It's not just making noise, but it's going, well, how can we reward the community for their engagement in the Radix community? How can we create a overlap our communities as much as possible with the wider community? How can we make sure that we're seen to be like engaging in the project that people want to be involved in? I think all of those are actually really hard things to do consistently, and I think that there's been some really great work that you guys have done there. So let's talk a little bit about Babylon, right? Yeah. And Ociswap, version 1. Are you calling the Babylon version 1? And this one,
yes,
version
we are calling it version 1. The current version is version 0 because you always start the count with 0.
Exactly. Proper way to count.
Yeah. How voice count? Yeah. We named our liquidity tokens that way, so they are called OC 1 version 0, for example, or OC 3 version 0 for the pools. So we will have different names for the liquidity tokens at Babylon, basically, but because it will work slightly different anyway, because they will be NFTs, so it's a bit different.
Sure. So let's talk about what it is that you are wanting to achieve with your with Ociswap V1, and let's touch on these three things that we mentioned in the introduction: concentrated liquidity, capital efficiency, and protocol-owned liquidity.
Yeah. Well, we want to offer a very smooth and easy to use user experience in the first place. So everything else is basically just to a helper to achieve these goals. So we want to have a cheap and easy to use experience. And for that, the one key is to increase the capital efficiency so that we can basically offer cheaper trades for the user. And a great way of doing that is to use concentrated liquidity, which means that the liquidity providers are not offering their liquidity at a whole range of prices, but only at a very specific range, which makes it more profitable for them, so they can add more liquidity, earn more, and this means in the end that users have much cheaper fees because the liquidity will be higher and then the fees are smaller.
Right. And so let's talk about what do you mean by capital efficiency? What does capital efficiency mean?
Yeah, it basically means that the capital is not very efficiently used in Uniswap version 2 because you need a lot of capital to achieve the same swapping fees like on Uniswap version 3. So the providers need to add much more liquidity to the exchange to get the same kind of transaction fees. And so in the end, it is much more profitable for liquidity providers, but there's also a downside that it's much more complicated to handle. And that's where the protocol-owned liquidity comes into play. So the idea is that the protocol handles the management of the liquidity. So the liquidity providers can add liquidity like on Uniswap version 2.
Right.
But the protocol provides the liquidity in a concentrated way to achieve the low trading fees.
Interesting. Very interesting. So let's just break that down a little bit, because I think Uniswap V3 is one of those ones that people find complicated. As you say, they find complicated. However, on the flip side of it, if you look at Uniswap V3 versus everything else, I think it's like 10x the trading volume, something close to that, maybe 5 to 10x.
I think it's even more, yes.
Right. And the reason for that is with a normal constant function market maker, you're providing liquidity across the entire price range that possible, all the way to infinity of one versus the other. So you have your two assets, you've got asset A, asset B, and they're put into a pool. And because the constant function describes the price between those two assets as basically as an asymptote, as you have less of asset A, then the price of asset A in terms of asset B goes up the less you have, and you end up going towards infinity, and then the other way. Now that's great from the point of view of basically describing an order book on an exchange, but not very good from the point of view of if you think that exchange isn't the only exchange that you're going to trade on, then actually most liquidity is probably within a bound. Like the most trading probably only happens within maybe range, 2%, plus or minus 2% of spot, right? And if it goes outside of that, then people don't keep buying asset A. They just go, oh, this exchange, I'm going to stop buying here. I'm going to go to a different venue. And then all of that liquidity that sits outside of that plus or minus 2% range.
It's unused, basically.
It's unused. It's never touched. So Uniswap V3 came along and went, what if it would be possible for people to specify a range on that curve that they could put their liquidity into? And instead of saying, here's 100 grand of asset A and 100 grand of asset B for the entire range, we're just going to say here's 100 grand of asset A and B within a plus or minus 2% range. Now, what that meant for Uniswap is now liquidity provision went much more complicated, because now if you don't specify a concentrated range, then you don't earn very many fees, because you're spreading out. If I'm a normal liquidity provider on Uniswap V3, I come along, put in my 100 grand in each side, as I used to in Uniswap V2. That was what made Uniswap great, is that anyone could come along, have a couple of tokens, stick it in, and they get the same fees as anyone else. But with Uniswap V3, it went, you can do that. You can just say, okay, A and B, you don't specify concentrated liquidity, you just stick it in. But the fees are shared equally amongst those people who have traded within for that trade. And if that trade is staying within ranges, then the people who provided the liquidity just within ranges get a bigger share of the fees than the ones who provide the liquidity across the entire range. Huge problem with Uniswap V3. However, Uniswap V3, concentrated liquidity from the point of view of users and the point of view of depth of liquidity around spot, is absolutely killing every other DEX on Ethereum. Like absolutely killing. And you can see, people don't really realize that until you start looking at the kind of fees that are earned on Uniswap V3 versus every other DEX, the kind of trading, the fees that are being spent on Ethereum in terms of like traded cost, and the actual liquidity, the equivalent liquidity around spot versus every other DEX. So this is where total value locked stops being as relevant, right? Because it's not about total value locked. It's about it's about capital efficiency. It's about how much of that capital is actually being allocated in the right part of the market. So here's the $1 million question. And you may not be willing to answer this at this point. That's fine. But I'm interested. How do you make it so that a protocol can manage liquidity on behalf of a user in a way that the protocol isn't taking on all of the risk, that the user still has some of the risk, right? Because I think that part of this is, a lot of simple protocols go, oh, well, we take all of the risk. Good example of this is Bancor, right? Where they take, and I wouldn't say Bancor is a simple protocol, but it does take a perspective of, what's it called? Impermanent loss protection, where the Bancor token takes all of the brunt. Now, with concentrated liquidity, you can get traded out of a position. And if the market moves a lot, you can get traded out of that position, end up all of asset A and none of asset B. So, how does your management structure work in that?
Okay, that's the part I will keep for Babylon, but I can say something how it roughly works.
Sure.
So basically, the idea is that the protocol owns much of the liquidity, and therefore is able to reallocate the liquidity for the different price ranges. So that's the part of the protocol. And the responsibility of the protocol, because the protocol owns the liquidity. So because in protocol owned liquidity, users can basically add liquidity to Uniswap, to Ociswap, and then can send their liquidity shares and sell them at a discount to the protocol. And then get paid via OC tokens.
Right.
And then the liquidity share of the concentrated position is owned by the protocol, and now the protocol is responsible for managing risk and reallocating price ranges. So that will be the part of the protocol. But it won't be exclusively via the protocol, so you still can add liquidity on your own via the normal swapping functions. And
interesting.
Yeah. Also
okay. So it's sort of like a hybrid of both. You can.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's more of a reward system. Basically, it's kind of an improvement on liquidity mining, because liquidity mining leads to people jumping from opportunity to opportunity, and then in the end, all your liquidity is gone, and you didn't have much from the liquidity farmers, basically. So it will be really that way that we have a reward system, which is basically the protocol-owned liquidity components, and that will handle the reallocation of capital for the specific price ranges, so that it will be stay profitable. And the interesting thing is that this also helps to solve impermanent loss for the users, because they don't own the liquidity anymore in the first place.
Right. So let's leave going any more into depth on that until Babylon. I'm very excited to see how this whole thing. We
don't want to tell too much too early.
No, it sounds super exciting. Exactly the kind of thing that we hoped would be unlocked by Scrypto, by basically creating a better programming language to make it easier to be more ambitious in the kind of functionality you bring to the market. So it'd be great if you could talk a little bit about your experiences of building with Scrypto so far, and how that differs from what you've experienced elsewhere, and what kind of things you've discovered along the way as you've been building this sort of towards Babylon.
I would say the key thing is that it really helps us to achieve much in a small team, and it makes it very easy for us to move fast and develop our smart contracts. And compared to Solidity, the complexity is much lower, and you're basically focusing on business logic and what you want to achieve. Because I would say that if we would want to implement all what we are currently doing and have planned for Babylon, it would be kind of out of scope, because it would be too much problems to tackle at the same time. Mm-hmm. But since Scrypto helps us to reduce the complexity, we're able to execute these, for us, very important parts at the same time. And I think especially the reduced time to market is very important for Scrypto teams and for smaller teams, so they don't get out-developed by bigger teams on other platforms.
Right. Lukas, have you been doing any Scrypto programming?
No, not myself. So I'm not a developer. I'm more into the social media marketing stuff and strategy, and building the community. That was more my side of the things, but I'm very technically interested, of course, and also proud to be an ambassador for Radix. And I really think it's a great and easy way to approach all the people outside of the crypto sphere, especially with Babylon AlphaNet coming in September. And I think when you already see all the apps deployed in September, or latest with BetaNet, end of year, it's I think the kickstart for all of us, for all of Radix, to really make some noise, to really be proud of what we've all achieved. And I think that's, especially from the marketing side of things, I really think it's an amazing start to do more, to do more for the normal retail people. And
Could you tell me a little bit about your team as it stands?
So it's Florian is head of development, and Marco is more on the design, front end design, and all the communication, flyers, and also strategic part. Christoph Feuermann is more in the back, not so visible. He's more in the legal stuff, so setting up companies and stuff like that. And like I said, my part is more into marketing, social media focused. And we already have a small team behind the team. And that's also with Alina and Chris, both one for the front, the other for the back end development. And some people helping us with the merch store, some people helping us with Instagram marketing, and also very helpful community moderators. Thank you very much. That's sometimes it's really, really tough to manage those communities, especially when it's very noisy during airdrop events and so on. So thank you for all of that.
Community moderators do the work of God. It is amazing. Like they should always be thanked, because crypto communities can be so difficult. Difficult.
Yeah, and Charles came from our community moderators.
Sorry, I missed Charles. Sorry.
And he joined our marketing team, and now is part of our team. So we have, including four moderators, we now have around 10 people in the team, and we also have some more external team members which take care, for example, of our merch store. So we don't need to do all ourselves. And that would be also my recommendation for other teams, to don't try to do everything on yourself, but try to increase your team in a sustainable way. So you also don't want to grow fast, because when you're looking for problems for your solution. But I think it's important not to just stay alone or stay with one or two founders. Yeah.
So as the person who is sort of responsible for delivering a large amount of the sort of the core functionality of Ociswap V1, how far are you guys so far on getting all of the functionality you described in terms of protocol owned liquidity, in terms of concentrated liquidity, all that kind of stuff? How far are you along the road on that?
Right. We currently have test versions of it developed, and we are exploring the possibilities and what you can achieve and how you implement certain things for Scrypto. And for the centralized version, we needed a lot of the things we will need later too. For example, we developed our analytics backend and streaming of transactions and bringing it all to the front end, having notifications and all that stuff, because in the end your project only consists of a relatively small part of smart contracts. You have a lot of surrounding a front end and back end and things outside of Scrypto, because you can implement most of the logic there, but you need to interact with the smart contracts in some way from your front end. And we currently are also looking at ways to offer standalone versions of the front end, so that interested users might even be in a position to have their own custom deploys. But that is also getting a bit tricky, because you then need to trust the community member in some way that they don't mess around with your stuff. So that's a kind of a trade-off, and we need to think about how we level that out, because currently I would say one bottleneck for security is also the front-end deployment of all these dApps, be it on Ethereum or also on Radix or any other chain, because the front-end, as far as I know, is nearly never really decentralized. It's the smart contracts, because in the end your browser needs to request some domain and needs to grab the content somewhere. And if someone messes around with your front end and can send out the private key or swap out transactions or receivers and stuff like that, so it's very important to take care of security all the way from beginning to the end. So
and sort of like one of the I think key problems that is going to be around for a while for public ledgers is that issue of the front end back end interaction. So like it's going to be really interesting to see sort of when AlphaNet and BetaNet come out, what kind of patterns emerge for sort of the Radix way of doing things, especially with things like the transaction manifest and stuff like that. I think there's some really interesting opportunities to reduce the amount of sort of like trust that is required from a front end. And so, I think there's going to be some really exciting work on that side of things as well. So from the point of view of, you've now been working with Scrypto for probably going on, well, you were part of the closed alpha, right, Florian? Were you part of the testing before it was even released?
Yes, I tested it back then,
Yeah.
And it came a long way, and I really like where we are at which position we currently are with Scrypto. And I'm also looking forward to what Matt said with the support of fee on transfers, because that's currently not possible really, because it only can allow to that's going too far now, but yeah, that will be supported, I think, in the next or
what transfers did you say?
The fee on transfer for NFTs, for examples. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So from the what you've already experienced, now I would say that you're probably one of the most experienced production Scrypto developers in the community at the moment. What do you love most about building with Scrypto, that as you've actually been attacking things, sort of real problems with them?
I would say that what I really like is that how easy it is to create tokens and assets, which really behave like physical things, and you don't need to take care of sending or keeping track of balance sheets. And this really simplifies your development, because if you just have a function which is getting some buckets of tokens, and you can return buckets, then you have a very clearly defined border of what your function will do, and you can test it much better, because the core functionality is very isolated when inside your function, and so basically you can compose multiple functions together, and each one has a defined specification in some way.
Right. So it just ends up intrinsically more safe. Like you're not having to do anything to make it so.
And you also need less code in the end. And coming from Python, where I always enjoyed that you don't need to type that much. This is very familiar to me.
Lazy coder.
So just to close out, Lukas, let's talk. Can you talk us through some of the milestones that you guys have achieved so far, and what you're looking to achieve over the next few months?
Yeah, so the first milestones, of course, was to grow the community with our airdrop events and all the other stuff we've already doing. And so we really think we are now on 20K around Twitter, 10K Telegram. To grow, the next big number is the 100K on Twitter, and also Telegram, of course. And so go step by step. That's all our goals for the social media side of things. I think that's, of course, to be the brand for the Radix stacks. So that's really also our goal, that when people join Radix, they cannot avoid us. So to be there, and that's also one of the things. And yeah, I think also now with the start of our CDEX, centralized DEX, so that's a funny word, I know, but we publish now every week new numbers for TVL and for volume. Of course, we want to grow there as well every week, and also have some ideas to get more engaging, and also with the trading, maybe some competitions, or so there's some things are coming in the near future as well. And of course, to implement all the feedback from the people to make the user experience even more easier to use, and with more features people request. And I think we already have some sort of features that are quite unusual for other DEXs. So when you're on Uniswap, for instance, you're just seeing basically the swap interface, more or less. And we already have some token overviews, look a little bit like on CoinMarketCap. So you can just look all the Radix altcoins there with the 7-day fluctuations, with market cap and all that stuff, with sharding. And I think that's a good way to be more engaging with your website on the front end, to keep the people more busy and more interactive. Also, maybe more social features as well. But there's many things are coming in the future. Really looking forward to that. So we have so many ideas. It's unreal. Yeah.
That's awesome. You guys have already got, the 18 coins in the Radix ecosystem on your homepage, ranked by market cap. You can see what their traded volume is and their popularity on. It's really great. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And with AlphaNet and BetaNet coming up, I'm sure we're going to see more sort of some more stuff for the community to engage with. When's the first time you expect that the community is going to be able to play around with the Ociswap V1?
We will look at the AlphaNet release, and when we will see how we adapt to it, because currently, for example, the browser wallet integration is not there yet. So we first need to look at the AlphaNet, and when we will.
What about the front end?
Yeah, talking about AlphaNet. Piers, can you say more?
You already confirmed it. You already confirmed the demo, right?
Okay. Yeah, what I wanted to add, what was really interesting while building the centralized Ociswap version was that it really showed how important composability between different shards is, because we wanted to support multi-pool swaps between different tokens. So because we have all of our tokens, we have pooled with XRD. So we have 18 pools, and we support swaps between all tokens. So from DeFi-BET to OC, for example. And we first wanted to have one pool per wallet. But when we realized that we can't do that, because each wallet basically behaves like a different shard from that perspective, or sidechain. And when we looked for a solution, and we now have kind of virtual pools which all live in one wallet. So we now have, so a wallet is kind of a subnet in that sense. So it really showed us in a real world example that having no atomic composability cross shards really makes your life hard and complicated. And it was really nice to really see something and experience that in practice. So it was kind of mind-blowing in some way. So even if you want to deploy something centralized, you need to think about that. And
because like, how do you scale it, right? And like historically, the way that matching engines have been scaled is basically put it all on one server and add as much fucking like memory and CPU you can to that server, but it's all on one server, and then everything else is then about trying to minimize what that server has to do so that it just does the matching, but it still has to be on one server because consensus algorithms haven't developed to the point where they can do, sort of cross application synchronicity or cross pool synchronicity or cross market synchronicity, and so you just end up with, well, you stick it on one server and you scale the server vertically, and that gives you your upper end bottleneck. It's a problem. It's a problem for traditional markets as well. It's really interesting. Awesome. Okay, so in conclusion, if people want to get involved in Ociswap, where should they get started?
Lukas, it's your turn.
I think, just play around. I think it's really an eye-opening experience to just visit our ociswap.com website, to just create your Zeus, so download your Zeus wallet for Chrome or Firefox. You can right away set up your new Radix wallet, send some XRD there, and do a simple swap for the first experience. And most of people are just blown away. The feedback we are receiving every day is just, wow, that was really easy to set up, really fast, cheap, and so on. And maybe that's a good way also to shout out all the people around crypto. That actually crypto or DeFi can be easy and can be achievable for every people. So it's not just for the techie guys. And so just visit our website, just play around a bit. And of course, you can also join our community. We are quite active on Telegram all the time, Discord and Reddit. And you can find all the links also on our website. We have a good documentation already, docs.ociswap.com. So there are all the typical questions about our team, about FHQs and how to set up the wallet and providing liquidity. So we've been also there quite active to have a good experience from A to Z.
Awesome. So Ociswap.com, that's OCISwap.com.
And
Lukas, Florian.
And if you want to get involved in the community, just join our Telegram channel. It's the way.
Join the Telegram channel as well. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's at the bottom of the page on Ociswap.com. And you can find the Telegram channel there. Lukas, Florian, so great to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having us here.
Thank you so much.
Utility, then you better call on these guys. I'm going radical, I'm going Radix, I'm going radical, I'm going Radix. Hyperspeed DeFi, never on a decline. Building the future, I feel like a savage.